At Virginia Produce, we specialize in helping farmers get their produce on the shelves of your local grocery store. When I call Skyline, I know who I'm talking to, and that makes a difference to me, especially with something as important as our finances.
Hey, Chamber members, Alan Waters here, your Director of Marketing and Communications of the Montgomery County Chamber of Commerce and your Words of Wisdom podcast. And today I'm joined by
Tessa Wright.
So, Tessa, tell us where you are, where you work, all of those pieces.
Okay. So, I work for Skyline National Bank, and I work in the Christiansburg office. I am a mortgage lender. I'm vice president for the company. So.
Cool. And to preface all of this, we were talking just before we came on. You have been on leave right now for a while, so it's been a while for jobs. So Skyline, I promise we're still going to talk about, all those pieces. But we've got a lot of other that's going to go into this. So I asked this first question. It's the first thing I say with everyone is, what does success mean to you? And particularly, I'd love to focus on this episode. What does success mean to you on the kind of like the personal side, and then almost separate it completely, if you can, the professional side?
Okay.
Yeah.
Those are great questions. I was just telling Alan that I'm fresh off of maternity leave. Actually, go back to work next week. So I am really engulfed in all things baby right now, diapers, all the good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But success for me personally looks like a happy, healthy family, and just a good partner, and being able to work towards the same goal. And for us, it's family, and that's really important. Mm-hmm. We try to be as involved as we can in our kids' lives, whether that be sports or school. So I'm really big into volunteering at the schools if I can. Professionally, success looks for me like a job where I'm excelling, and that can be hard sometimes to measure what that looks like. But, showing up to work every day with a positive attitude, a company that is willing to invest in you, I think is super important. Mm. And they see the potential in you, and they're willing to put their, neck out there in terms of additional training and opportunities for you as a professional. So I think it's just continuing your education in your professional journey is really important.
Yeah, I fully agree. And I also feel like as you balance the two of those, you always have to have some satisfaction in both parts of what you're doing. Otherwise, you're going to grow stagnant. Mm-hmm. And sometimes that's going to change. Sometimes that's going to shift. Do you think that shifted for you more after having kids? Was there a different approach as you were in your career before kids versus after kids?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. Okay. I think in my 20s, I was really trying to figure out what my niche was. And that's both professionally and personally. Where do I want to see myself? And so I think that there's a grind that you have in your 20s that you're really just trying to dive into everything and figure out what you want. And in your 30s, hopefully you try and reach those goals, and you sustain them, and you just keep reaching for the top in both avenues. And it's hard to juggle both.
Yes.
But you find a way to make it work because you have to.
Right. Yeah. It's important. I've heard a lot of it is it's not really a balance. There is no. You get equal footing on it. It's just a matter of when you have the time, when you have those pieces, just live in that kind of as you can.
Right.
So with getting back, what do you think are some of those like trepidations and worries that as not a new parent, but this is third, right?
Yes.
So as a thirdly new parent, as you're going back to work this time, what are some of the things that are feeling different than, I guess, maybe even the first time going back? Where has that been through Skyline that you've gotten some more comfortability and you've got that? Or is it you've just built your way to that in your career that you're ready? You know, how does that work?
I think age has a lot to do with it. I feel more comfortable, I think, in this new season of my life because I am older. I know what, you know, the other 2 kids are like, and so this is just it's hard to manage 3 kids, I will tell you.
Yeah.
2 is okay. 3 is what did we do? But I think that honestly, one of my biggest fears is getting to work on time. I'll be honest. But I think it's going to be an exciting time. You know, getting all the kids where they need to be every day and just coming to work with a fresh mindset and excited to start the day. And, you know, you just roll with the punches. Whatever happens, happens. And I'm excited to get back to work and get in a routine. Routine is very important.
Yeah.
And I think everybody needs that in their life. And it makes you excel. And it makes you set expectations for yourself as well as your kids, which I think is really important as they grow older. So yeah, just getting back into it.
Yeah, I'm one of 3 kids, and so I was the oldest, but ours was a little different because my dad was my school principal, and so a lot of our time was spent, okay, we won't be late for Dad's work because we're just going to be there whether we like it or not.
Yes.
So we were in the education system. And so as you're going to things like now, I don't know what they're interested in necessarily. I've had some friends that baseball, the soccer, the football, sometimes it feels like you get to the travel teams and you've got other problems. So what part of that really plays into your schedule as well, where you're starting to come in and say, great, again, getting on a routine is really important. When I hit this time, I'm probably always going to be with my kids now. How does that kind of play into as you're coming back to work, as you look at your career, and as you look at success through those lenses?
Yeah. Time management is definitely going to be a challenge, but I have a really great support system. We have family that live close that can help, you know, take kids where they need to go, but also me to be present is what I strive to be in all areas of my life. And so I think just trying to manage it as best as I can and prioritize, you know, important versus it can wait.
Right.
But, you know, there are going to be times when work takes precedent over, you know, family and vice versa. So it's really just a balance and figuring out what's most important at that time and urgent. So, you know, we like I said, we do have family that live close to us and they help us manage. So, yeah, I think just figuring out what you need to do day to day.
Yeah. Shout out to my in-laws. I'm looking forward to it. They're both getting close to retirement age.
Yay.
So I'm like, this is a perfect opportunity.
Do they live close?
They're in Blacksburg.
Okay. Very nice.
So right here.
Yeah.
So, all right, getting over to more of the work side. So tell us about your role at Skyline, you know, and then one, I know this is a me thing. I can't keep the title straight and all of that. And at this point, I've talked to, I think, at least 24 different bankers on the show. So explain what that kind of title there and how you worked to that position through Skyline or where else.
Sure.
Yeah.
So I'm a mortgage lending specialist, so I facilitate financing for all things home-related land, so construction land. I'll also dabble a little bit in some consumer lending, so personal loans, that type of thing. Really anything that walks in the door except for commercial lending is kind of my realm. And then the vice president piece is just it's a tenure.
Okay.
So it's, you know, you work your way based on your how long you've been in banking and then your experience overall.
Yeah.
Not everyone, you know, there are milestones that you
Right.
have to go through to sort of get those titles, and it's different based on where you work too.
Yeah.
They have different kind of guidelines and stipulations.
I was going to say, because
so,
like I've
yeah.
also heard like mortgage loan originator and
Yeah.
so it's like, are those the same position? Is it just a matter of what bank you're working at is going to have a slightly different word for some of these pieces.
So banks have different titles for that specific role versus a broker.
Oh, okay.
So they're more like a mortgage loan officer.
Oh, okay.
Versus a mortgage lending specialist or originator.
And what kind of led you to that world?
So I worked for another local bank in town for about 10 years and just kind of worked my way around, started as a teller and ultimately a branch manager. And I really loved the lending piece of it. It was very, I guess, rewarding to me to see that. I mean, that's a huge milestone in your customers' lives to be able to purchase a home.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so to be a part of that is very special to me, as well as the construction lending piece. I just built my house a couple years ago, and that is a very crazy process. So to have someone be there to support you through that journey is really important, especially as someone that has lived that and can give you some good sound advice is important. So I think just the rewarding aspect of lending has kept me in it. So.
And going back to like graduating high school and those pieces, what was the trajectory at that point? Because I can't remember if it was on the show recently or somewhere else. I joked that if we all stuck to the first goal we set in mind, we'd all be cowboys, princesses, astronauts. So like what was the trajectory that went from, all right, I'm graduating high school, this is what I want to do, to this is where I'm finding my passion in those pieces?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I wanted to be a teacher. I'm an elementary teacher when I was in high school and then the start of college. And my in-laws were teachers for 35 plus years. And it's an amazing, professional journey to be in. But I just thought that I started as a teller. Let me back up. I started as a teller in 2011, and I was in college at that time. And I just honestly, I loved to be able to help people in that financial aspect. And I really enjoyed seeing that start to finish goal. I know that that's a minute way to think about it, but it was fulfilling because it was short, to the point. They were happy at the end of it and they left. And so that feeling just kind of grew into, I think I really like helping people financially. So my goal shifted from education ultimately to just staying in banking, just simply because of starting at the bank.
The feeling and all that.
Yeah. So
cool. And as you were talking about that, it made me wonder about the, have you done the Working Genius, or you've seen stuff with the Working Genius?
Through leadership.
Right.
Yeah.
And so where have you fallen on kind of that spectrum of things too? Because to me, that almost sounded like the tenacity, those aspects of like, oh, I saw it through, I saw the joy that they got, and that helped. There's the enablement and all of that.
Yep.
Has any of those pieces, like also through your time in banking, showed you, oh, this is part of why I was drawn to it?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think definitely. I think so. But I think that Working Genius has actually shifted in my life a little bit, just simply due to, growing. But yes, I think it definitely has correlated with that for sure.
Well, we're going to take a quick break, and when we get back, I want to talk actually more about leadership. So
perfect.
Life can be unpredictable.
Twins.
It's rarely ones and zeros. It doesn't always fit perfectly into boxes, but then again, neither do home loans.
You should call Skyline.
At Skyline National Bank, we get that. That's why you'll always get our best when it comes to buying a home. Because it's not just what's in front of us that matters, but who's in front of us. Skyline National Bank. Always our best.
So we are back, and leadership is right now, as of the time of recording, wrapping up for the year. is your time on leadership wrapping up as well? So tell me about leadership as because we had an episode with Abby, but tell me about leadership and your experience in those pieces.
Sure. Yeah. So ultimately, I was approached about the dean position a couple years ago, and I was really hesitant to really follow through with it. I wasn't sure if that's something that I wanted to do, but ultimately, I chose to as a challenge to myself because I am a terrible public speaker. And, that's, that's everyone's, I think, fear and deep down or at some point in their life. Public speaking is definitely something I'm hesitant about.
There's a reason there's that like reoccurring dream people make fun of where it's like I'm in my underwear talking to a crowd of people. It's like true. It's a huge thing out there. I mean, it takes the right kind of mindset and it's not always the right person. It's training and things as well.
Exactly. And just being confident and comfortable with not only yourself, but the content that you're speaking about, I think is important too. So yes, I took that as a challenge to myself to facilitate, and I have loved it. It's a challenge.
Yeah.
It's a lot to undertake, but it has been very rewarding. I've met a lot of wonderful people. There are so many wonderful things about the community that we live in that I didn't even know about. Yeah. So it's been a wonderful opportunity.
Yeah, I was potentially going to go through, I mean, just like everybody else, we have to go through the interview process and everything when we apply as chamber members. But when we found out we were due and I say we were due, I'm not doing anything. I'm sitting next to Rachel. But like in March, I was like, I don't think this is the right year for leadership for me. But a large part of what I'm looking forward to is my professional growth. I need more of delegation. I'm quick to be the person who's like, well, this needs to be done. It's faster for me to do it than tell someone else about it. So I just do it. And I was like, I can't do that anymore. And going through the leadership program, I was like, great, this is an opportunity to force myself to like be one of the people that's not constantly at the front of the room. Like I'm just going to follow what the others need and then let someone else actually handle things. So I'm looking forward to that when it eventually happens. But so any future plans, you're going to, when Marianne's ready to roll off, you're going to come back and be Marianne or work with Whitney from the board perspective and be the head of leadership?
Well, I don't know about that, but I mean, any avenue that they need help with, I'll be happy to help. I don't know what the plans are for the program. I haven't heard, but whatever they need, I guess.
I'll hold you to it. I'll be like, hey, Tessa said to give her a call. So how has leadership and going through that impacted those changes in work and stuff as well? Because you mentioned Working Genius changed, that kind of stuff. I feel like this is a program, once you've gone through it, even if it's not what you're expecting to get out of the program, it's going to change your trajectory if you're doing the things.
Right. Yeah. I agree totally. I would say juggling things, being able to just go with what comes in front of you and being able to manage as best that you can. Also, I think professional growth, public speaking, because that was my biggest fear, and I've gotten more comfortable with it, and I've challenged myself more with that. Right. So I would say being able to juggle things, and then just overall public speaking.
And I feel like your overall involvement with the chamber, because I mean, it's not just leadership. You're also in case group. You've also done things in the past with women's leadership, I believe. Like there's a lot going on. I feel like a big piece of that in your world is also building not just the personal relationships that you're like the referrals and those things, but building the relationships that you don't know are going to pan out in 4-5 years. I've heard a lot of, especially in case group, we've had people be like, yeah, I had a lead from 4 years ago close this week. And so that kind of longevity and planning is hard to think about. But when it comes down to that, how much of, I guess in a way that it is sales, but like how much of it is personal relationship based versus the cold calling, those avenues and those pieces?
Right.
Because I feel like people do get in their heads and think all of my job is going to be just cold calling and like hard selling people.
Yeah. Honestly, if I had to put a number to it, I would say 70% is going to be relational. And then 30% is your cold calling. I mean, truly, it is about relationships.
Yeah.
And I will say, in my leadership journey with the chamber, I still talk to people that I was in class with. And I mean, truly, they have become really great friends, professionally and personally. And I would recommend, I'm pitching for the chamber here,
Right.
but you need to do it.
Yeah.
But truly, it is about relationships. And I'm sure you've heard that from multiple people, but it's the truth.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's so much of what we're about here anyway, is relationships. But there really is such a part of it that is, I mean, our best friends at this point are Leo and Emily Pretty.
Yeah.
And I only met him because I was doing real estate and went to a BNI meeting and then came to the chamber. And so it's just like random happenstance. And I mean, I was in real estate all of 2 months, and here I'm now at the chamber as well. And so those pieces, you just never know what's behind every avenue. I was very used to that with theater because, I mean, you could work on one show and then a year and a half later you get a contract and you're like, oh, it's because I worked with you over there. And that was, so, I mean, that's what got us through COVID. That's what a lot of those pieces were just, it's about who you know.
Yep.
It's not necessarily always about what you know.
Exactly.
But if you know what you know and who you know at the same time, great.
You got it made.
Exactly. And speaking with that, so you were talking about the opportunities through Skyline to grow. Could you speak a little bit more to what are some of those programs that are offered and things? That way, if someone is looking at a career in banking or a career in finance or even a career just specifically at Skyline, they kind of know what they could be on the lookout for.
Yeah, that's a great question. So in every bank that you go to, obviously, you're going to have systems training just based on that specific bank, what programs they use, that type of thing. So obviously, that's a training that's offered there. We also offer internal training classes online, and there's several different platforms and classes that you can take, whether that be retail lending training, credit training, also training when it comes to fraud and scams. That's really important, especially just the world that we live in, right? Knowing how to identify those types of things. But there's also American Bankers Association classes that you can take. And most of the time they're online, but you can also do those in person. And then there's also VBA banking courses. That's through the Virginia Bankers Association.
Okay.
There's also a Virginia Bankers Association Management School, and that's typically in Charlottesville, and I'm going through that right now. So it's a 3-year-long course. So yeah, there's lots of developmental courses that you can take for bankers.
And is it similar to certain professions like real estate and whatnot, where some of it is expected for continued education? You mentioned fraud here a second ago, and I know from our discussions with Jenna, I know from our discussions with other banks as well, once something has happened, there's not a lot that is in your hands that you can really do. If someone hits the wire bank transfer and the money is transferred and it's gone, a lot of the times it's gone, right?
Yeah, I mean, it depends. It's situational. Now, sometimes the bank can work with you on receiving those funds or getting those funds back into your account. But it really just depends. I mean, if it's something where the customer initiated it and it went to someone fraudulent, that's different.
Yeah.
But if it was someone got a hold of your card or your card, was stolen or something and it got used, that's something that we could work with you on.
Right,
so it really, truly just depends on the situation.
Yeah, and mostly I wonder that. We had a recent Eggs and Issues that was on cybercrime, and one of the things they were talking about now with the increased use of artificial intelligence and some of those pieces, I think we've all had an experience where either ourselves or a loved one has gotten that call and it's like, oh, hey, it's me, your grandson, I'm in jail and I need this. They're potentially going to start having some of those calls be their voice.
Yeah.
And so it's terrifying. It's some scary things to think about. But
Right.
I really encourage everyone to talk to their bank professional before you're making any of those adjustments anyway.
Yes.
As a lender, are there any of those pieces that will impact someone's ability to borrow? Is it going to impact their rates or anything if they're getting closer to closing on something and all of a sudden they have something pop up? The way things are going, if a scam or something happens to someone, someone like gets their credit card, steals some money, and they are, 14 days out from a closing. Is that going to impact their ability to have closing move forward? Is that going to impact any of their rates? Like, as they're looking at some of these things, what are some things that like people should be doing that they can really control?
I'm with you.
To make sure that they're not going to screw up at the last second? And what are some things that they have to be extra careful because they don't have the control on those?
Right, exactly. So 5 days before closing, we will do what's called a soft pull. And it's not a hard pull on your credit report. It's not something that you would see that we're doing, but ultimately we're pulling it to make sure your credit score hasn't changed. You haven't gone into any more debt than you're already in. And because that can impact your debt to income ratio, which then can impact, it can impact the ability to even get the loan if you're right on the border of your debt to income for that specific loan program. So it is detrimental to try and really pay attention to your overall, financial aspect in those, few days before closing. And really when you're even starting to get a loan or looking at houses, you really need to be mindful of, and have a pulse on your financial, picture.
Yeah, it's not like a week out. You're like, oh, we're closing. I'm going to go get the furniture and now I'm going to open this credit card. Or
no, please do not do that. Bad idea.
This garage would look great with a new Corvette in it. It's not
till after you close, please. Yeah. So just being mindful of those things during the process is really important. And also it's on the lender to be able to counsel you and get you through that process as smoothly as possible.
And I'm not going to ask the question that I feel like everyone is going to constantly ask you, like, what's the rates? What is that happening? The only thing I'm going to ask is there any common misconception you would say people have coming into that lending world of, I have to hit this specific number, I have to have this X amount in my bank? Like, is there anything along those lines that you just want people to know, like, hey, regardless of what that rate is at any given time, these are other things you should be like doing to look good, I guess?
That's a great question. So I would say really limit your revolving credit usage. So even though your limit's $5,000, you really need to only be utilizing 30% or less of that credit card, because that's going to negatively impact you once you hit over that 30% usage. And just try to pay it off every month if you can. Don't just pay the minimum payments. I would say not overdrafting. There are a lot of wonderful loan programs, but when you're applying for a loan, specific government loans especially, we have to get bank statements, 2 months of bank statements. And so if we're seeing those overdrafts happen when you're trying to apply for a loan, that doesn't really set a good financial tone for the loan and doesn't make you feel really confident in that customer. So I would say just really try to be on top of keeping a positive balance in your account and just really try and work on those revolving credit cards. It's really important.
Yeah.
So.
Will do. Well, tell everybody where they can find out more information about you, Skyline as well, and tell us where, what branch you're at, those kind of things, so that people can come to you for a loan of some kind.
Yeah. So, again, my name is Tessa Wright with Skyline National Bank. We are in Christiansburg on Market Street. over here in the shopping center across from you all. Our website is skylinenationalbank.bank. You can reach me. My cell phone number is 540-605-0725. On maternity leave, I have gotten so many loan requests already, so I'll be busy when I get back to the office. And you can find us on Facebook, on Instagram, and then the website that I shared. So
awesome. Well, thank you for being here today.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Skyline. Thank you for everybody who's listening. We'll be back with a new episode next week. In the meantime, make sure you go out, invest, connect, engage, and prosper.